Let's get it. 580 Sports Talk coming at you on a Thursday. Live and direct for the next 3 hours on the Sports Voice of Kansas. 580 WIBW, FM 104.9, online at 580WIBW.com. And we are streaming on video, as always, on our YouTube channel, 580 Sports Talk, and on Facebook at WIBW News. 3 hours of sports talk coming your way. So glad you're spending some of your Thursday with us, or with me, I guess. I'm Dan Lucero, and I'm flying the plane solo to start the show today. Spencer Dupuis will be along in a little bit. Brendan Wrzinski will join us as soon as he gets back from Kansas City after a stunning upset in day two of the MIAA men's basketball tournament. Number 1 seed Washburn goes down this afternoon to the 8th seed Central Oklahoma. They ran into 1985 Villanova today, is what happened for Washburn. Central Oklahoma made 60% of their shots. Hard to lose a game when you do that. And Washburn went 6 of 31 from 3 and still scored in the 80s. I mean, it's not like they were impotent offensively, but tough to keep up in a game where the other team shoots 60%. So Washburn, number 4 team in the country, number 1 seed, the MIAA tournament, regular season champions. Their tournament run is done after 40 minutes of basketball, but that should not, and we'll talk to Brendan about it when he gets in, and he'll have more to say, certainly, should not affect their ability to host the Central Region portion of the first 3 rounds of the NCAA tournament. Nobody else has fewer than 8 region losses. Today's loss is the 3rd region loss for Washburn. It would be very surprising if anybody other than the Ichabods is hosting the first 3 rounds in the Central Region. And I guess if you want to look on the bright side, they'll be well rested going into next weekend. But that's where Brendan's at. And that is the journey he is making, and we'll have him join us a little bit later on the show today. Also, Spencer Dupuis will be along. But it is just yours truly, Dan Lucero, with you to start the program today. We got 3 hours, and we got a lot. We got a lot to get to in these next 3 hours. We were tight for time yesterday, and it was a big Chiefs news day with the Joe Thuney trade, and we're still going to talk some football on today's show. But we're going to touch some other bases today as well. K-State men's basketball gets a dub last night in Porkopolis, Cincinnati, Ohio. That's a reference to yesterday. That's one that rewards the daily listener to 580 Sports Talk. You remember that from yesterday if you were tuned in. If not, you're like, what the hell is he talking about? Anyway, K-State was in Porkopolis last night, and they won. It was not the most aesthetically pleasing basketball game that has ever been played. They are not going to send the game tape immediately to Springfield, Massachusetts, to the Basketball Hall of Fame, but it was a win K-State had to have. They're looking for any kind of postseason play, and they're not going to get there if they're too far under 500. They needed a win. They got it, and Coleman Hawkins played 34 minutes coming off of injury. And I want to salute the senior, Coleman Hawkins, in discussing what he did last night at obviously less than 100% in helping his Wildcats pull out a 5-point win over Cincinnati. So we'll talk some K-State hoops here in a little bit. We'll also talk Big 12 basketball with the great CJ Moore, one of our guests today. CJ will join us at the bottom of the 4 o'clock hour for the Big 12 basketball breakdown. CJ Moore of The Athletic, the best college basketball feature writer in America. We'll get his thoughts as we approach the final Saturday of the Big 12 season and look ahead to next week's Big 12 tournament in Kansas City. Our other guest today, Rick Peterson, TopSports.news, our local sports spotlight with Pistol coming up bottom of this 3 o'clock hour. Obviously, a lot to get to with him. State wrestling is in the books. Day 1 of state bowling is in the books with day 2 ongoing. And, of course, sub-state basketball championship games are set. There are 24 teams from our Pigskin and Hoops preview magazine listening area. 24 teams playing for the right to go to state on Friday and Saturday. And we'll tell you about our coverage for Friday and Saturday night coming up in a bit. And Rick Peterson. We had Tim Fitzgerald yesterday talk K-State. Rick Peterson joins us bottom of the 3 o'clock hour. We'll get into some baseball today. The Royals were victorious last night, Cactus League play. They've got another night game tonight. And last night's game is notable for two reasons. Number one, a lineup that you might want to get used to, at least 1 through 8, at least the general composition of it. And number two, I'm not patting myself on the back just yet for being the early adopter, for being the one who refused to sell his stock, for being the last of the true believers. I'm not going to pat myself on the back about that on March 6th. I'm not. But MJ Melendez hit another home run last night. Maybe, just maybe, the erstwhile top prospect has unlocked something. We'll talk about MJ. We'll talk about the Royals. Also, their spring breakout roster was released today. And if you're wondering what that is, well, hang around. We'll talk about it later on today's show. And as I mentioned, we will get to some Chiefs as well. Lots of NFL news going on today. Within the last half hour, Bengals star defensive end Trey Hendrickson has requested a trade. This is trade request season here with 4 days left before the start of the legal tampering period and free agency getting going in earnest. So you got a lot of cuts, and you got a lot of players asking for trades. There's one player yesterday, Seahawks wide receiver DK Metcalf, who has requested a trade. And one ESPN writer thinks the Chiefs make sense as a destination for DK Metcalf, or at least makes sense as a team that ought to determine whether or not they are a destination for DK Metcalf. We'll talk about if it really does make sense. Like, beyond, context free, in a vacuum, yes, go get a good player. He'd be one of the best wide receivers he's been one of the best wide receivers in the league. He'd be one of your best wide receivers. Go get a good player. Having good players is better than having bad players, in my opinion. Replace a bad player with a good player. But does it really make sense, given the context of the cap, given the context of what Metcalf might cost in trade and what he might cost in terms of an extension? We'll get there later on in the show. Plus, all the things you've come to know and love from a Thursday edition of the program. We got our 580 Sports Talk headlines. We got What Is Wrong With You coming up in the 4 o'clock hour. We'll do some either or over-under. That is all still to come here on 580 Sports Talk. Want to hear from you today throughout the program. 2 ways you can weigh in with us. The text line is wide open. 785-272-9429 is that text line number. 785-272-9429. Let us know your thoughts throughout the show today on the text line. Also, if you are watching the show today on YouTube and our YouTube channel, 580 Sports Talk, the live chat function wide open for you to join in and be a part of the conversation with your hosts and, of course, with your fellow listeners as we go along through the show today. A hello to Paul and Christopher and Mark H. They're in early today, and I know we'll see more of you as the show goes on. And hey, if you've never watched the program on YouTube and you've never jumped into the fray of the live chat, why not give it a shot today? Why not subscribe to our YouTube channel, which again is called 580 Sports Talk, and make yourself a little bit more of a part of the show and the community surrounding the show. We'd love to have you check us out on our video stream, even if I'm the only one on it right now, on 580 Sports Talk. Let's talk some hoops, shall we? Let's talk some hoops. K-State, a winner last night, 54-49 in Cincinnati. K-State didn't score a field goal in the final 4 minutes and change of the game. They had a 7-point lead, and they held on to win by 5. They defended really well, probably about as well as they've defended all season long, to be completely honest. And Cincinnati didn't shoot it great. It's not a real good team. I don't think they're going to make the NCAA tournament, which is a long fall from a team that, if you recall, entered Big 12 play as a top 20 team in the country. High hopes for Wes Miller's bunch. And now, honestly, Wes Miller might be a Big 12 coach to watch as far as the hot seat goes. The K-State wins the game, and as is usually the case, David Gasson was awesome. He had 18 points and a double-double and made several key plays on both ends in the second half because K-State started slowly. That's kind of their thing, especially on the road. They got out to a pretty slow start. They trailed by as many as 8 in the first half. They were down at the break. They rallied, put together a good run, took the lead for good with about 10 minutes to play. And then, as I mentioned, held on even though they did not make a field goal in the final 4 minutes and change. Coleman Hawkins played last night. he was a game time decision. We saw on social media a clip of him and Moby Ike-Garuke going through warmups, and Moby played as well. He was back after a 1-game absence. Hawkins had missed the last 3 games with an injury of indeterminate origin, just that he had gotten hurt in the Utah game. And you could tell what exactly was hurt. He had that long sleeve, leg compression sleeve on one of his legs. But he was not restricted minutes-wise. He played 34 minutes. He had 9 points. He had 7 rebounds. He defended as well as he could have. He handed out 3 assists, even though he did turn the ball over 6 times. It was obvious that that was not 100% Coleman Hawkins. But they needed that from him. They needed his presence. They needed that win. And they got it because he was on the floor. I do not suspect that this 2024-25 K-State basketball team is going to live very long in the memory of even the most diehard K-State fan. And certainly whatever space it occupies in the memory won't be a particularly fond one, given, again, the likelihood that this team will miss out on the NCAA tournament for a second straight year, despite some really high hopes and a lot of money spent in the transfer portal. I understand that that's the case. And I understand that all of those things apply to Coleman Hawkins and his K-State career, his 1 year as a member of the Wildcats. The first thing you will think of, probably, when you think of Coleman Hawkins and his K-State career will be the dollars spent in name, image, and likeness money to summon Hawkins to Manhattan and make him, by some accounts, the highest paid player in college basketball this year, or at least the highest paid player off the transfer portal this year in college basketball. And that has stuck with Hawkins all season long and been what has kind of defined him and what's defined K-State this year. All that money in the transfer portal, all those NIL dollars, and these kids aren't even going to make the NCAA tournament. I get it. That's entirely fair for that to be the first thing you think of when you think about Coleman Hawkins. So maybe you won't remember Hawkins' K-State career too fondly, but I'm going to tell you something. You ought to remember his effort last night. And I don't mean remember every shot, every rebound, every part of a statistically pedestrian 9.7 rebound outing. I'm saying remember the fact that he was out there at all. Jerome Tang, in the post-game press conference last night, essentially said that he gave Coleman Hawkins the option to shut it down for the rest of the season. To say, you know what? Sheer didn't go how I wanted it to go for myself or for my team. I'm hurt. I got a chance to play pro ball. I don't know what his NBA prospects are. He's a big guy with a multifaceted skill set. I don't know that he's athletic enough or a good enough shooter for today's NBA. But look, if you're a senior, you played a lot of college basketball, and you've played a lot of college basketball, well, you've got some professional dreams of some kind. And to hear Jerome Tang tell it, he all but gave Coleman Hawkins permission to initiate Operation Shutdown and call it a season and call it a college career. And Coleman Hawkins wouldn't do it. Coleman Hawkins said, I'm going to be out there for my team. They need me. I want to get back on the floor. I want to play. I want to finish this thing out with my guys. That says a hell of a lot about Hawkins' character. And it says a hell of a lot more about him than whatever got directly deposited into his bank account when he decided to go to Manhattan. I think there is an idea that all today's major college athletes care about is the NIL, is the money, is the chance to monetize their name, image, and likeness. And the idea that a guy like Coleman Hawkins, when the K-State season was sliding down the tubes in December in the non-conference with that miserable end to the non-conference season, those 3 games, the last 3 games of the non-conference, are what's going to be costly to K-State as far as the NCAA tournament goes. Because they got a chance to finish 500 in league play if they can beat Iowa State on Saturday. 500 in this league. You told me back in November, K-State goes 500 in the Big 12. I would have said, all right, hey, hopefully they end up somewhere cool for the first round of the NCAA tournament. I would have thought they would have gotten in. 500 would have given them a chance. Nine wins would have given them a chance. But they screwed the pooch in the non-conference. We all know this. There's no need to relitigate it. But the common thread and the common definition of Coleman Hawkins at that time was he's not out there caring about K-State. He's out there caring about his wallet. He took the money and he came to K-State and he's mailing it in. He's just taking the check. And that's all these kids care about is their NIL. And I just think that's nonsense. That's not grounded in reality. If you've watched Coleman Hawkins play any basketball in Big 12 play, what happened with Hawkins, and I said this as it was happening in non-conference play, that Coleman Hawkins is naturally a second banana. And that is not an insult. That is not an insult. You know who else is a second banana? Scottie Pippen. He's in the Hall of Fame. But what that means is naturally you are deferential to maybe another alpha dog or another alpha scorer, at least on your team, and you embrace the fact that all of the other stuff you can do. You can be what your team needs you to be. They need 15 points, you got them. They need 8 assists, I can do that and facilitate from the high post. You need a bunch of rebounds, I'm 6'9", 6'10", I can go get some boards. You need defense, I can guard any spot on the floor. Going to be hard for me to guard some quicker guards or some bigger centers, but I can guard anywhere on the floor, and I'm going to give it my all. That's the kind of player Coleman Hawkins was. That's why he was so in demand on the transfer market. The problem, though, was that K-State didn't have another alpha, at least not one that emerged, so you had a second banana being asked to be an alpha, and it didn't work. And you could tell that it made Coleman hesitant, tentative, trying to play the game. And you can't have that from your highest paid player. You can't. But when K-State played better in the conference schedule, as Doug McDaniel took a little bit more of the leadership reins of the team, Coleman Hawkins' role started to make a lot more sense. And he started playing a lot better basketball as a result. And then he got hurt. And that was a bummer. But at every turn, whether he was playing well or not, Coleman Hawkins gave a damn. Coleman Hawkins left it on the floor. And look, have there been some less than inspiring performances this year from K-State? Absolutely. We can't forget them getting blown out at home against Houston. That happened. Getting blown out by Wichita State in what was obviously Wichita State's Super Bowl. That happened. The ugly home loss early to LSU that kind of served as the canary in a coal mine for what this season would end up becoming for K-State. Those games happen and we can't erase them. But by and large, when I've watched the Wildcats play this year, I don't see a team mailing it in. And when I watch Coleman Hawkins this year, I don't see a guy mailing it in. And that's the guy that could have. That's the guy that had his head coach's permission. Say, look, the season's not going anywhere. We understand you want to shut it down for your own sake. Gives Jerome Tang a chance to give more of a run to guys like Ugo Onyenso and Buddy Rich and Taj Manning or Moby Ikegaruke and have a better idea of what they're going to be in the future. And Coleman Hawkins wouldn't take that for an answer and went and played 34 minutes on a bum wheel and busted his butt and helped his team win a road game last night. And so whatever you'll say about Coleman Hawkins, can absolutely be critical of him as a player. You can absolutely be critical of the fit. That he was, again, a very obvious second banana that was kind of brought in, and maybe the vision was that he'd become the alpha for K-State. And that's just not what happened. Some actors are just better served as supporting actors and not leading men. But say this about Coleman Hawkins, too. Busted his tail for K-State. He didn't just take that money and cash the check and forget about it, mail it in. Played hard last night. So did his teammates. And they defended hard. And they had to because they couldn't make a shot. I don't know what it is about K-State in particular, like they got to be one of the best three-point defensive teams in the country because there have been some games this year where teams have just been unable to hit water falling out of a boat from behind the three-point arc. And I don't know that that's anything particularly special that K-State has done. I really don't. But they also shot it like crap last night. My God, Brendan Hawson. Hawson was 0 for 4 from 3 and 0 for 5 in the game. They ran a play for him late at the top of the key, and he shot a three-pointer. And if not for the backboard getting in the way of that cannonball, it might have killed somebody in the third row. Like, just an off night. Hey, Brendan Haas is a good shooter, and he's had much better games. He was not feeling it last night. Nobody really got rolling offensively for K-State last night. They needed to grind one out, and they did. Now they go home. They got senior day, and I've said loudly that folks ought to show up for senior day and give David Gasson his flowers, and I think the people will. But spare some of that applause for Coleman Hawkins, too, because I think that he proved as this season went on that he was all in for Kansas State. And Jerome Tang said as much in the postgame, saying we got guys that are playing for Kansas State, that they're playing with some pride. Even when, after that 6-game losing streak early in Big 12 play, it was pretty obvious that it was going to take something miraculous for Kansas State to play the NCAA tournament. Guys played hard, and Tang coached hard, and there's credit to be given in that. It's small consolation for a disappointed fan base, but it's there. And I give Coleman Hawkins the credit because he could have shut it down. He could have said, it's not worth it for me. I'm not going to go out there and play, and he didn't. And I do. I give him credit for that. I think he deserves credit for that from last night. We're going to take our first time out here on 580 Sports Talk. We got some more college basketball to get to. We're going to talk local sports spotlight with Rick Peterson at TopSports.net coming up bottom of this hour. We got Royals. We got Big 12 basketball breakdown with CJ Moore. We're going to talk Chiefs and a possible DK Metcalf fit or not. And take your texts and your comments in the YouTube live chat. We are just getting started on this Thursday afternoon edition of 580 Sports Talk. 3:32 on 580 Sports Talk. We're just getting underway on this Thursday. I'm Dan Lucero. Thanks for being along. A couple of reactions to my opener about Coleman Hawkins, and I think they both kind of come from the same place, both the positive and the negative sort of perception of Hawkins. A text from 785, the perception of Hawkins was skewed by his NIL money. He was never going to be a 20-10 guy, and that is true. That is true. Like, if you're going to be the highest paid player in the NIL market, though, you're probably expecting star performance. And even the best version of Coleman Hawkins probably is not a star, probably is a second banana type. Tyler points it out in the YouTube live chat, says Hawkins wasn't even the second best player on Illinois. I would dispute that. Last year, Terrence Shannon was their best player. I would say Coleman Hawkins was pretty clearly their second best. I know he's only their third leading scorer, but his positional versatility, his size, I think he was their second best player. I think most people would say the same. So I wouldn't go with you there. But the rest of the comment from Tyler, making the third best player in a not so spectacular team your highest paid player. Illinois is pretty good. They finished number 6 in the country last year. Or at least there was their highest ranking was number 6 in the country. Yeah, they finished. Yeah, number 6 in the country. So that's a pretty good team. And making him your highest paid player seems like a whiff. That, yes, I will agree. Again, if you're going to make a guy your high dollar, not just your high dollar NIL guy, but maybe the high dollar NIL guy on the market, you should probably make sure that what he's surrounded with is something that fits. And a player like Coleman Hawkins, he's connective tissue, right? He's not the beating heart. He's connective tissue. He's the one that makes other guys better because he can make up for some of their other weaknesses. But Terrence Shannon Jr. was a dog last year for Illinois, right? And that is why they got to the Elite Eight, because they had a dog, and then they had Coleman Hawkins being able to be whatever Illinois needed him to be on any given night. And then they had Marcus Domask scoring 15 a game too. That also helped. And Dane Danger, they had some toughness inside. Did I just want an excuse to say the name Dane Danger on the radio? Yes, I did. Thank you. But back to the point I'm trying to make, Hawkins is better served when he isn't your best player. That's true. And it's not a coincidence that K-State's best basketball came when he wasn't their best player. When Doug McDaniel was kind of, I don't even want to say he was their best player necessarily, because all season long, the answer to who their best player has probably been David Gasson. But you needed maybe it's more accurate to say you needed a primary playmaker so that Coleman Hawkins could be the secondary playmaker in whatever facet his team needed him to be a playmaker. That might be the better way to put it there. But thanks for the comments. Appreciate that. Again, the text line, 785-272-9429. And if you are watching on YouTube, jump into the live chat. Again, the YouTube chat available if you are watching on our 580 Sports Talk YouTube channel. We're going to take a time out. When we come back, Rick Peterson joins us for the local sports spotlight. Lots to get to in the local sports spotlight. Coming up on 580 Sports Talk. We are joined on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline by the incomparable Rick Peterson of TopSports.news, who covers Shawnee County High School sports and Washburn University athletics for the website TopSports.news, an indispensable part of your media diet if you are a local sports fan. He joins us every Thursday here on 580 Sports Talk. And today, Pistol, you're out at 4-1A State Bowling.
Yes, in Wichita at Bolero in North Rock.
Bolero in North Rock. 4-1A, obviously Hayden down there. What's the update you can give us on today's action?
Well, Hayden's girls finished sixth, I believe. Hang on, I got that right in front of me. And the boys, let's just say they are going to do, I don't want to let any cats out of the bag because it's not official yet, but let's just say the boys are going to do much, much better. So they got off to a great start and had absolutely like a record-setting second game. So
wow.
They're in great shape. The girls were sixth, and Emily Lee, Hayden Sr., got fourth, and her twin sister Ashley Lee got 11th. So the girls had a good performance, and the boys are going to be doing some celebrating. So.
Very cool. Is this like the bowling version of a no-hitter? We don't talk about it in progress? Is that what we got going on here?
Yeah. Until I get the print out, I'm always a little nervous about saying anything, but I know they're doing very, very well.
5A State Bowling was yesterday, and a bit of a disappointment for the local bowlers in the state event yesterday in 5A. No individual hardware, some medalists coming back, but relative to recent years, not quite as competitive at the top of the leaderboard.
Well, I know Seaman thought they had a chance to win the title and just had, by their standards, an off day, but still got the third place trophy. And then Shawnee Heights boys were the defending state champs, so obviously they would love to repeat, but they just couldn't put it all together too, and couldn't quite challenge yesterday.
Rick Peterson of TopSports.news, our guest for the local sports spotlight here on 580 Sports Talk. Joins us every Thursday on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline. Pistol, last weekend, state wrestling and some state championship winning performances. No team titles again this year. Washburn Rural girls failing to win a team title for the first time in history. They took a third place team finish, but had some great individual performances. And Washburn Rural boys, 3 individual state champs, including Easton Brocksterman, who put a capstone on one of the great careers in city wrestling history.
Yeah, three straight titles, a 4-time state finalist, Landon Kocher Musos, 3-time state finalist as just a junior, second state title, Christian Marshall, second straight state title. So yeah, they were a solid third for the second straight year.
Yeah, great performances by the Washburn Rural Junior Blues and Lady Blues on the mat. Another great story out of 5A. We think about Highland Park Wrestling. There's a proud tradition there. Obviously, Melvin Douglas, maybe the greatest in the history of the city. And Michaela Cadet, adding to the storied history of Highland Park Wrestling with the first girls individual state title. That was pretty cool to see how that went down.
Yeah, on her 17th birthday.
Oh wow!
That was even more of a story. But she was the first Scott girl to make it to the semis, first Scott girl to make it to the finals. She just kept making history, and she was the first Scott girl to win a state championship and avenging a loss to that same girl in regional competition. So just quite a weekend for her.
Great stuff from state wrestling. Lots of great recaps on that, of course, at TopSports.news from Rick Peterson and the staff, TopSports.news. Let's shift to the hardwood, Pistol. We've got a lot of local teams that are going to play for sub-state championships coming up. We'll start on Friday, and we'll start with the game that we'll have here as the first of 2 games on the 580 Preps Road to a Championship tomorrow night. Girls action in the 5A West bracket. Seaman remaining unbeaten, though didn't play their their best basketball in a 17-point win over Topeka West, their third win over the Chargers this year. They've got Cape and Mount Carmel coming to town, a good Cape team that went 16-5. That 5A West bracket ended up being really, really deep. There are going to be some good teams that don't make it out to Emporia. What is SEMA going to have to do Friday night to make sure that their winning streak stays alive and their bid for a repeat stays alive?
Just play their game. You know, it might have been good that they had a little bit of an off night in the semifinals, because now I think they'll just be more determined than ever to really play well in that final. So I think they're fine. I think they'll just, but they'll need to play well.
The other game that we will have, the second game on our 580 Preps Road to a Championship doubleheader tomorrow night, will be 2A action from out in Blue Rapids at Valley Heights, where Rossville will try and knock off the top seed in that sub-state, Mauer Hill Mount Academy. And people I've talked to, Pistol says this ought to be a really good game. Mauer Hill Mount Academy ranked 5th in the state in 2A, but Rossville right behind at number 6 in that KBCA poll. And they're playing good basketball right now down the stretch, those Bulldogs.
Yeah, I think it will be a great game. I think there'll be several great games, and there should be in the sub-state finals. But looking at some of the matchups for the local teams, there's going to be several that are probably going to go right down to the wire.
Which one on Friday? We talked about the ones we'll have on Seaman girls versus Capon, and then the Rossville boys versus Mauer Hill Mount Academy. Which game on Friday night do you maybe have a really close eye on and think, man, this could go either way? This is going to be a really, really intriguing matchup on Friday night for a state berth.
Well, let's see, on Friday night, who's on Friday night?
That's
5A boys are on Saturday, right?
Right, yeah. So 6A.
Okay, that's the one that really the Aquinas Shawnee Heights boys game really intrigues me. And then and then on the girls' side, there's just I think that the couple of our teams got some really tough draws. I mean, Shawnee Heights has to go to Piper again, and then Highland Park gets, guys, I don't even know how many titles Aquinas has won, but they get them. So we got they got some uphill battles, but and there's just some really, I'm looking forward to again on Saturday, the West boys put themselves in great position to get a state berth in Christian Ulsecker's first year. So it's going to be a wild weekend.
I want to ask you, too, about the Hayden boys. They go to Rock Creek tomorrow night in a 4A boys sub-state, and Rock Creek is the host there. Hayden, of course, always plays a tough schedule, went 12-8 in the regular season, scored 90+, 93, I think it was, in their first-round win over Independence. Is Dwayne Anthony's bunch, are they another one kind of peaking at the right time with a real eye on a chance to get to state?
Yeah, and I think that Hayden Rock Creek gives a toss-up. I mean, Hayden will have to be on the road, but I think with the schedule Hayden's played in the Centennial League, I think they can play with anybody in 4A.
Rick Peterson, our guest for the local sports spotlight here on 580 Sports Talk. You mentioned the 5A boys games. There are 3 of those on Saturday night. The game will be broadcasting as part of our 580 Preps Road to a Championship coverage on Saturday night, a 5 o'clock tip-off at the Pressure Cooker, Highland Park, undefeated, taking on Baser Linwood. That's a Baser Linwood team that's played really well down the stretch, including an upset of Piper in one of their final regular season games. Highland Park, they're no strangers to these sub-state games, and certainly no stranger to state. They've been the third-place team each of the last 2 seasons. What do you handicap their odds of making it back against a good United Kansas Conference team?
That is a very good Baser Linwood team. I've seen them play, and they weren't real good early in the season, but they handled Seaman late in the season. They beat Piper late in the season. I saw them play tough against Shawnee Heights. So Highland Park's going to need to be at their best. I think it will help Highland Park being at home, but it's good. It's certainly for a 21-0 team. It's certainly not a cakewalk to the state championships.
No cakewalks this time of year. That is for sure. All of these games are a little trepidatious. There's nobody. I don't look at any game statewide and think, boy, yeah, the top seed is just going to roll. There no problems at all. I just think there's a lot of depth across the state this year. And look, you don't think a top seed can get got? Did you see what happened to Great Bend last night? The top seed in the 5A West boys bracket.
Yes, and that's the thing. And then Valley Center knocking off Seaman boys. You're going to have them. You just don't know where they're going to come.
Yeah, absolutely. I try to make predictions. I try to look and see which way I'm going to go. But the next time I bat 1,000 on those will be the first time, Pistol.
Me too. Me too.
As we talk to Rick Peterson at TopSports.news. Some final thoughts here, Pistol. Washburn men upset in round one of the MIAA tournament, or their first game of the MIAA tournament anyway. They fall to the 8th seed Central Oklahoma today, 90-84. I'm sure Brett Ballard would never say it out loud, but is there a chance this might be a blessing in disguise for Washburn to, A, have a bit of a longer rest, cool their heels before the Central region, and B, to have a loss to look at and make sure that they tighten some things up before they get into the regionals?
Well, it will certainly give them some motivation, and you're right. Coach Ballard would never say that there was any positives coming out of that. But yeah, you're right, and we'll know 9:00 is it Sunday or Monday exactly what. But I think they still have a very good chance to host a regional. So they're in great shape.
I'd be surprised. They've only got 3 regional losses. Nobody else has fewer than 8. I can't imagine that a 6-point neutral site loss is going to outweigh an entire season of domination in the Central region. I can't see it happening.
No, I think they're fine. And again, we don't want to say anything until it actually happens.
Right.
But I think they're in good shape. So
Washburn women tomorrow night, they will take on Nebraska Kearney. They split the regular season series, but they almost won at Kearney without Yabari Widada and Madeline Emeckperfor, I believe, if I remember right. So what do you make of Washburn's chances of moving to semifinal Saturday at Municipal?
Well, I know they're excited about it. I talked to some of them yesterday, and they're excited about it, and they're excited to play Kearney because Kearney ended their season a year ago.
Yeah, they'd like their lick back for sure. That game tomorrow night over on our sister station, your home of the Ichabods, Country 106.9, a 6:00 tip-off from Municipal. Brendan Dworzynski will have the call that at 5:45. And Rick Peterson will join us next Wednesday to recap all of or next Thursday. Maybe we'll see. We'll see if we've got games.
Okay.
We'll figure it out as we go along, Pistol. But
okay.
Rick Peterson joins us every Thursday, typically here on 580 Sports Talk for the local sports spotlight. Pistol, enjoy the rest of the state bowling, and we look forward to reading all about it and the rest of the prep sports weekend over at Top Sports.
Okay, look forward to next week.
Thank you so much. That is Rick Peterson. We will step aside for one more timeout this hour. Come back, wrap up the 3:00 hour, 580 Sports Talk. Our thanks again to Rick Peterson of TopSports.news, taking some time out of covering state bowling down in Wichita to join us for the local sports spotlight out at North Rock Lanes. They got a cool little sports collectible store in there. At least they did last time I was down there. Rock's Dugout. They got some cool stuff there, like really cool stuff. And it's so strange for it to be like tucked inside a bowling alley, but it's a little treasure trove in there. Little tip: next time you go out to Wichita, you go to North Rock Lanes. You have to bowl. It's not one of those things where you go in and they make you bowl to gain admission. But if Rock's Dugout is still there, and I hope it is, because I knew Rock a little bit when I lived down there in Wichita, Joe Rocco, and great guy. And go check out Rock's Dugout if it's still there in North Rock Lanes. Anyway, our thanks to Pistol for that, and sounds like some good news today for Hayden Boys Bowling. So that would be very cool if they can bring home some state tournament hardware. As I mentioned during the segment, our coverage is set for the next 2 nights on the 580 Preps Road to a Championship. We have a true doubleheader for you tomorrow. 6 o'clock, Seaman girls take on Cape and Mount Carmel in 5A West Sub-State Championship game action. Myself and Larry Latimer on the call. We'll go live at 5:40 with the pregame, and we'll throw it out to Blue Rapids. Trenton Craxter will be on the call. Our good buddy Trenton, our former summer intern, he'll have the play-by-play as Rossville battles Mauer Hill Mount Academy. We hope that Trenton will be in good spirits, whether or not his beloved Valley Falls Dragons win the first game of that sub-state. Valley Falls taking on Mission Valley. But however that game goes, Trent's got to open up the mic and do the second game. So we look forward to hearing from Trent tomorrow night on that call. So that's our doubleheader tomorrow night. Then on Saturday, single game coverage for you, 4:40 pregame, 5 o'clock tip-off, Highland Park and Baser Linwood from Ken Darting Gymnasium in a 5A East Sub-State Boys Championship game. Then stay tuned to our website, 580wibw.com. Stay tuned to our social media, WIBW News on Facebook, 580 Sports Talk on X and Blue Sky, and 580 Sports Talk, the show. And we'll let you know where we'll be for the state tournament. K-State in the Big 12 tournament will certainly potentially have a say in what we can do. But, of course, we enter our 58th year of state tournament coverage here on the Sports Voice of Kansas. Coming up at the 4 o'clock hour, let's talk some baseball. The Royals may have previewed their opening day lineup last night. We'll get to that. And also, MJ Melendez, red hot, quiet as it's kept. Plus, CJ Moore of The Athletic will join us for the Big 12 Hoops Breakdown. And what is wrong with you in the 4 o'clock hour, 580 Sports Talk. Let's get it. Hour number 2 of 580 Sports Talk coming at you on this Thursday afternoon. So glad you're with us here on the Sports Voice of Kansas, 580 WIBW, FM 104.9, online at 580WIBW.com. And a special welcome to everybody watching on our video stream. We're on YouTube, 580 Sports Talk. We are also on Facebook at WIBW News. I'm Dan Lucero, still solo for a bit longer. Brendan Dworzinski and Spencer Dupuis will join the program as we go before 6 o'clock tonight. Got CJ Moore of The Athletic coming up later on this hour. CJ is going to join us for the Big 12 basketball breakdown. We are down to the final Saturday of the Big 12 season. So we get CJ's thoughts on the upcoming Big 12 tournament, some Big 12 awards, who he'd vote for Big 12 Player and Coach of the Year, and maybe some national college basketball thoughts with CJ if we get a chance as well. He covers the sport at large, gracious enough to chat Big 12 with us every Thursday throughout the season here on 580 Sports Talk. He'll join us bottom of this hour. We've also got What Is Wrong With You, sponsored by State Farm agent Ryan Mowinkle. That's coming up. And we're going to talk some baseball here, too, in just a little bit. Royals tonight in Cactus League play, back-to-back night games for the boys in blue. Want to hear from you as we go on the show today. Text line is open, 785-272-9429, 785-272-9429. Or you can hit us up in the chat on YouTube. If you're watching the YouTube stream, 580 Sports Talk is the name of the channel. There's a live chat in the web browser. There's a live chat on the mobile app. You're logged into YouTube, probably. Save your preferences. Subscribe to your favorite content providers. You know, us, Mr. Beast. I don't know. I can't invoke that name on this program without thinking about Spencer ordering the Mr. Beast burger from DoorDash. That one's in the archive for sure. Anyway, whoever your favorite content creators on YouTube are, hopefully we're one of them. Hopefully you're subscribed to the YouTube channel. If you're not already, you ought to be. Subscribe. Click that I don't know if it's a bell or I don't know what the button is you're supposed to click. I did it so long ago, I don't even remember. But subscribe to the YouTube channel, 580 Sports Talk. It informs you when we go live with our show and with any live instant reaction videos that we do. And if you are watching today, get in the live chat. Love to hear from you. Appreciate everybody tuning in today and watching me talk to you. Thanks for hanging out. Hope you like my green eggs and ham themed day. It is National Reading Week. I think Dr. Seuss Week in I think nationally. I know that the Chiefs do something with Dr. Seuss Week. My wife, who's a school teacher, her school does something for Dr. Seuss Week. They have a themed week. My son's daycare has had a Dr. Seuss theme each day of the week. And today was Green Eggs and Ham Day. Today was Wear Green. I said, okay, I can do that. I got my Hartford Yard Goats fitted cap on and a Tulane Green Wave Fear the Wave hoodie that I'm homefieldapparel.com very proud of. One of my favorite hoodies, one of my favorite logos, the Angry Wave logo. So that's why I am in the hoodie itself is not green. The hoodie itself is a light blue, but the Angry Wave is green and my hat is green. So I thought that was good enough for Green Eggs and Ham Day. So shout out to everybody else who is participating in that or not. I don't remember if it's the same theme day ever. I don't remember if my wife left the house wearing green today. Yesterday was Wacky Mismatch Day. I know that was for my son and for my wife. They wore mismatch clothes. Anyhow, this 580 dad talk. So jump in the live chat. Share your favorite Dr. Seuss book. Or text the show, 785-272-9429. Maybe you missed it last night. Maybe you're not quite dialed into baseball yet. You and I aren't the same. I'm always dialed into baseball. Royals played the Mariners last night in some evening Cactus League action in surprise, and the Royals came away with a 9-6 victory, thanks in large part to a 5-run fifth inning. And what is notable about last night's game is the way that the Royals started the game. Now, you'll notice this as you pay attention, that typically when teams go on the road, this is especially true in the Grapefruit League down in Florida, where you've got more ground to cover, whereas everybody in the Cactus League is in Greater Phoenix. But typically the road team will not bring like a bunch of the A-list guys. And as such, it won't typically be like a top flight lineup that you'll see from a visiting team in Cactus League play. The home teams, though, they'll take the opportunity to roll out their dudes. Like there was a couple days ago when the Royals got knocked around a bit by the Diamondbacks, and they were playing in Scottsdale, and the Diamondbacks had what looked like their opening day lineup, and the Royals did not. The Mariners actually traveled a pretty good lineup last night. They had Julio Rodriguez, who had a pair of home runs. Cal Raleigh drove in 3 runs. Randy Rosarena was in the lineup. I forgot he was still in the Mariners. Donovan Solano, their big off-season acquisition, Donovan Solano. That is a true fact, and so is this related fact. Mariner fans are really mad at their general manager. Like, really mad. And they should be. That's a team that should be trying a lot harder to win than they are right now. Anyway, Mariners brought a good lineup. They scored 6 runs. They got a run in 3 innings on the Rodriguez home run off of Michael Lorenzen, but that was the only hit Lorenzen allowed in his 3 innings. Then Chris Stratton gave up a home run to Julio Rodriguez and his inning of work. Chris Bubic was really sharp for 2 innings and wobbled in the 3rd, left with some traffic, and the minor league reliever who came in after Bubic allowed all 3 of those runs to score. So Bubic's final line looks worse than it was. Lucas Erstag worked clean 8th with a pair of strikeouts. That's on the pitching side. I'm more interested in what happened on the hitting side last night, because this was the Royals lineup in surprise. Jonathan India leading off in left field. Bobby Witt Jr. at short, Vinny Pasquantino at first, Salvador Perez catching, hitting cleanup, Michael Massey at second base, Hunter Renfroe in right field, hitting 6th, MJ Melendez, the DH, batting 7th, Maikel Garcia at third base, batting 8th, Joey Wiemer in center field, batting 9th. Now, I've advocated for Joey Wiemer. He homered. He had a 3-run homer last night, but he hasn't had a great spring. Kyle Isbell's going to be the guy in center field. Maybe Wiemer gets a look if he has a hot month or 2 down in Omaha, which is where I would expect him to start the season, although who knows? Like Dairon Blanco hasn't gotten to a game yet. Nick Lofton's a little bit banged up, though he did play last night. But that sounds kind of opening day-like to me. That would not surprise me if something like that, just scratch out Wiemer and write Isbell into the final lineup spot, that could be the opening day alignment. You have Jonathan India in left field and Maikel Garcia at third base, which leaves Michael Massey to play second. And MJ Melendez then is your DH. Now, is MJ Melendez an appreciably worse fielder than a guy who's never played the position before? I don't know, because I haven't seen enough of Jonathan India's work in left field. Seen MJ Melendez's work in left field. It's improved. It's not going to win a Gold Glove anytime soon, but it's better than it used to be. But he is DHing with India playing the field. And even if that's not exactly the opening day lineup, and again, for all intents and purposes, just pretend center field batting 9th is the slot we're talking about here. I think we'll see that lineup a lot in 2025 or some variation of that lineup. Maybe some games it's Maikel Garcia in center field. Maybe some games it's Massey DHing and India at second and Melendez in left. Maybe it's Renfroe DHing, and I don't know who that would put in right field if Renfroe's DHing. Renfroe's defense, by the way, used to be really good, and I think he's still got a decent arm, but you look at the metrics, the defense is degrading. The Royals are going to need, I think, they're going to need a glove for Hunter Renfroe, like a personal defensive replacement out there in right field for the games that Renfroe plays this season. But that's for another time. Maybe that's former Gold Glover Adam Duvall. Who knows? I like the lineup. The reason, too, that I think that it feels like opening day-ish is because it's a very Matt Quatrero flair to it, in that the lefties and the righties are split up. You have a left-hander past Quintino hitting third. Perez is right-handed. Massey is left-handed. Renfroe is right-handed. Melendez is left-handed. So you break up the lefty-righty a little bit. And speaking of MJ Melendez, let's talk about MJ, because MJ got off to a really slow start this spring. I think it was 0 for his first 9. We were already making fun of him around these parts. He hit another home run last night, his second home run of the spring. Hit it off of Bryce Miller, who's one of the better pitchers for this outstanding Mariners staff. Melendez's batting average for the spring is now up to 300. His OPS is up over 1,000. And normally, and like 95% of the time, I look at spring numbers, particularly early March spring numbers, and tell you those and $1 will get you a cup of coffee. Not a very good cup of coffee. Coffee's expensive. That's an old reference. When I say things like that, I used to make the reference all the time. That and 50 cents will get you a newspaper. The newspaper doesn't have 50 cents. When was the last time you got a newspaper for 50 cents? So I got some dated references. I need to work on that. Maybe like those stats and $10 will get you a carton of eggs. That's a more contemporary reference. I figure. But anyway, normally I would tell you, ignore the numbers, ignore the spring training performance. It's just noise. It's nice to be optimistic, but it's just noise. It's just small sample size noise. But when a player is doing something different in the spring, whether it's a pitcher who's added a new pitch, or a starter working in a relief role, or a reliever working in a starter's role, or in the case of MJ Melendez, whether it's an offensive player trying out a new batting stance. When things like that are happening, when spring training is a player getting into the lab, so to speak, I think you can put a little more weight, a little more stock into what you see with some of those spring training numbers. Now, this is not to suggest that it is time to go to your nearest sports book and put down money on MJ Melendez to win American League MVP or lead the league in home runs, anything like that. But I have said and been consistent in saying the Royals, as presently constructed, are a bat away from being the favorite to win the American League Central. That doesn't mean I don't think they can win it. They're in position to be able to win it. Problem is, there are 3 other teams that can say that too. The Twins can say that, the Guardians can say that, and the Tigers can say that. And the Royals didn't do enough this offseason to separate themselves from those teams. I still feel that way. But if there is a guy in the organization with the best odds of becoming that bat that they currently appear on paper to lack, it has always been MJ Melendez. Given not just his minor league track record, but given the hitter that he was as a rookie. People forget, but in his first half season as a major league, it wasn't even a half season. He played 129 games. They got him up early in 2022. But he had 18 home runs and he drew 66 walks. And though the OPS was still just over 700, it still represents better numbers than what he gave the Royals last year, because the power dipped and the patience wore off. And if you watch Melendez and you watch him swing through, I didn't see any hitter in baseball swing through more hittable fastballs last year than MJ Melendez. And that alone made me feel like, man, he's ripe to change something. Something has to change, because you can't be a big league hitter and swing through that many mistake pitches and be that susceptible to velocity. Because the book on Melendez was not a tricky one to figure. Just throw him fastballs. You can beat him on high fastballs. You can beat him up and in. He can't cover that spot. Well, with a different approach, a different stance, it feels like just a small thing, but he is making more contact, and it's been loud contact, and it's been a little bit more all fields contact than the pull heavy approach that we saw from Melendez last season, where he had the worst OPS so far of his big league career, even though he had the highest slugging percentage of his big league career last year by 2 points. Slugging percentage has actually incrementally increased, even as his average and his on-base percentage have gotten worse over 2 years. But that's why I watch Melendez's spring with a bit more curiosity, because I think that the fact that he's changing something about his approach means it could be a little more meaningful than just, oh, somebody's having a hot spring. Like Maikel Garcia is having a good spring so far. He hit 389 this spring. That's good. I like seeing that. OPS is 950. He had 2 hits, 2 runs driven in last night. That's good. That's good. He's going to be a part of the 2025 Royals. I want to see him improve from what he was as an offensive player in 2024. But is this a young player improving, or is just small sample size noise? Well, I don't know that anything's changed with Maikel Garcia's approach necessarily. So I can't evaluate it yet. You got to see when the rubber meets the road. But with MJ Melendez, who is remaking his stance and trying in the process to give himself a better chance to get to pitches and see pitches that he wasn't getting to and wasn't really giving himself a chance to see last season, then I do put a little bit more weight into it. So we'll continue to track MJ, because right now, as it stands, I mean, those rumors were out there about the Royals wanting to sign Adam Duvall, or the Royals maybe being interested in trading for Starling Marte, and they're dying for just league average production. Marte, even though I think he might be kind of washed, was a league average hitter last year. But if they get that in-house, MJ Melendez is the best bet to give that to him. So that is something that I think will bear following as we go on this spring. Question from Vance in the YouTube comments while we're talking Royals. I'll take a Royals question from the commentariat. Vance asks, Dan, do you think Freddie Fermin will do a large majority of the catching this season? I guess that depends on what you mean by large majority, Vance, but I would not be surprised if he catches more often than Salvador Perez this season, because he's a better defender than Salvador Perez, and it's easier on Salvi's legs. You're going to need Salvi to be a real contributor offensively, and that gives him a better chance of being that if he is behind the plate a little less often. I would catch the better catcher. And at this stage, I know Salvi's got gold gloves, but at this stage, Fermin is the better defender. He's got the better arm. He caught more guys trying to steal last year, like a lot more guys by percentage trying to steal last year. He's a better framer, and that skill still matters because the automatic ball strike system isn't in play yet. I think that's the move. I think that the Royals would be well served to give the majority of the reps behind the plate this year. Like if Fermin caught 100 games and Salvi caught the other 60, 62, I think that would be fine. I think there's still some veteran savvy that Salvi has to offer, particularly if the Royals do end up having to call up some young pitchers. But you want to maybe catch the better catcher. And right now, defensively, given the age difference, that's Freddie Fermin. We'll take a timeout here on 580 Sports Talk. When we come back, Brendan will join us, and we will do a little What Is Wrong With You? And then CJ Moore will join us. Basketball breakdown. That's all still to come as we roll along here on this Thursday edition of 580 Sports Talk. What the hell is right? The gang's all here for 580 Sports Talks. What is wrong with you? Brought to us by our buddy Mo, Ryan Mo Winkle, State Farm agent. Go to his website, RyanMowinkle.com. That's MOHWINKLE. We have got 2 new stories today to try and take down our current weekly champion, the Double D drunk driver, the gentleman who was heavily inebriated, FaceTiming with his girlfriend while driving, and distracted when his girlfriend decided to show him 2 things that were waiting for him when he got to his destination, presumably. And the toplessness of his girlfriend was distracting enough that he drove up on some train tracks. He made it out of the vehicle, but the vehicle did not make it off the tracks. Jeez. So that's our current weekly champion. Going to be a tough one to beat. Brendan Dworzinski, welcome to the show. You'd like to start today?
I would like to start today. Here's the abstract for this story. A gentleman stole a bunch of diamonds from Tiffany, and to hide the evidence, he ate it. A Texas man posing as a representative of an unnamed NBA player stole diamond jewelry worth about $770,000 from a Tiffany store, according to police who arrested him after he swallowed several solitaire earrings. Investigators allege that 32-year-old Jathan Gilder appeared late last month at a Tiffany at the Mall of Millennia in Orlando, Florida, claiming he was there to negotiate a purchase on behalf of an Orlando Magic player. Gilder was then escorted to a private room where he was shown a $587,000 diamond ring and 2 sets of earrings, one worth over $600K, one worth $160,000. While discussing the purchase and a wire transfer, Gilder allegedly jumped out of his seat, grabbed the jewelry, and bolted for the door. Gilder fought with a male employee as he sought to leave the VIP room by violently pulling at the doors. During the scuffle, the ring was knocked out of his hand before the suspect got the door open just enough to escape, running through the store as the staff attempted to stop him. So using surveillance and public safety cameras, people were able to find out he was driving a 2024 Mitsubishi Highlander. That was the getaway vehicle. 6 hours later, he was trying to get back to his home state of Texas, where he lives in Houston, where he was pulled over in that same Highlander. He was alone in the vehicle, and to hide the evidence and the stolen contraband, he swallowed the earrings. He put them in his mouth and swallowed them as he was being taken into custody. They then scanned his stomach and found several foreign objects they believed to be the stolen jewelry. These foreign objects will need to be collected by cops after they are passed through his system, according to an affidavit. He had to poop them out.
Some expensive
as
poop.
One does.
They had to wait for him to poop out earrings. While in custody at county lockup, Gilder reportedly said, quote, "Am I going to be charged with what's in my stomach?" Earlier, he had said, quote, "I should have thrown them out the window while in the back of the police cruiser." He has been arrested multiple times for multiple things, including a similar heist 3 years ago.
And I said, "What about breakfast at Tiffany's?" He said, "I think I swallowed some diamonds, as I recall. I think I didn't really like it." And I said, "Well, that's the felony charge." Okay, I'm done. I'm sorry.
Shout out to Deep Blue Something.
You beat me to it. Anyway, that is my comment on the story. For my story today, we have a dude that just started firing a gun out the window of his car while driving on I-95 in St. Augustine, Florida. Yeah, just driving his car, pointing out the window, shooting a gun. Just past the old St. Augustine Road exit. The man pointed a gun at deputies as they closed in on him. He eventually crashed his vehicle and had to be airlifted to the hospital. We don't have a lot of details on this story. I don't know what else you need, but you can see the video of him erratically driving his red Ford pickup and pointing like an old-timey revolver-looking gun out the window of the car.
Hello.
Like the rich Texan from The Simpsons. Yeehaw! Just shooting the gun in the air. Not an awesome thing to deal with if you're on the other side of the interstate, that's for sure. Don't know how many shots he ended up getting off. He eventually crashed and had to be airlifted to the hospital.
Yikes. Oh, my God.
Yeah.
That's wild.
Yeah, that is quite a story. Yeah, they got they had the video of him, the car getting pulled out. They had to tow it. Anyway, very simple story there. That does not beat the dude swallowing diamonds, like $800,000 worth of diamonds.
Also, what, $600,000 earrings? That's crazy. He ate them.
Yeah, he did.
I feel like that although it's going to come out on the other end, like you're going to be bleeding somewhere because they're, like,
Ew,
like
come
cutting,
on.
Gross.
like cutting the insides of you. Like I'm talking about like in your esophagus and stuff.
Yeah,
not
I
at the
mean,
back end.
That
I'm
couldn't
talking
have been fun.
like you could
No.
probably feel them
Yeah.
trying to be digested.
Would diamonds break down in stomach acid?
I
No.
can't imagine.
Probably not.
Diamonds are forever.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, this is insane. I love that he just said, I am here on behalf of an NBA player. Please let me into the VIP room. And they said, yes, sir, right this way.
Yes, my client plays for the Orlando Magic. I cannot say who it is, but
Nothing more.
they are my client.
Who do you think it was? Who do you think he said? I mean, it's got to be Banchero, right?
Yeah. I mean, you can't go in there being like, yes, I represent Mo Wagner and we want to buy some expensive diamonds.
Do you remember Hito Turgaloo? Because I'm representing him.
Let's remember some Orlando Magic. Shout out to Scott Skiles.
Yep, I was just thinking Scott Skiles.
That's
the second time he's come up on the show this week.
Yeah, it's wild. Nick Anderson, hope you're doing well.
Does that beat Double D's?
I don't think so. It's a really good story.
Yeah.
But like, the guy got his car annihilated on some train tracks because he was
It's too horny. Another
was.
case of too horny for his own good.
Yes, it's
And too drunk.
Tale as old as time.
Yep.
Alcohol and sex.
The opposite
you mix,
sex, yeah.
You mix those two things and bad things happen. So our Double D drunk driver continues on as our winner. That's What Is Wrong With You, sponsored by our buddy Mo, State Farm agent Ryan. Mo Winkle. See what Mo Winkle Insurance and Financial Services can do for you. We'll take a break. When we come back, CJ Moore joins us to talk Big 12 hoops on 580 Sports Talk. We are joined on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline by CJ Moore, who covers college basketball for The Athletic. He is the best college basketball feature writer in America, and he joins us on Thursdays for the Big 12 basketball breakdown. Check him out across social media at CJ Moore Hoops, and, of course, read his stuff at The Athletic. CJ, since we last spoke, KU is 0-2 against two really good teams, Texas Tech and Houston. It doesn't feel like they're playing all that poorly necessarily, just not able to get games over the finish line. And I think that's why one of the reasons this season feels so frustrating for KU is that it's not as though they've been broadly non-competitive relative to the top of the league. They just haven't been able to get games to the finish line the way we expect a Bill Self Kansas team to do.
Yeah, and I honestly think if they would have played the way they've played in these last two games against some of the teams they lost to in February, then they'd have a pretty good record. And while it wouldn't feel like a normal Kansas season, it would look a little bit closer to it. So I actually think they've kind of turned a corner. They're playing decent. We'll see what happens this weekend and next week at the Big 12 tournament. But I do think, as far as this season goes, I guess there's a little bit of reason to be optimistic just because they're playing better ball here since the new season began. I know they're 2-2 right in the new season, but they're doing, they're playing a higher caliber of ball.
You mentioned the defensive effort. What has been the key to improve play on that side of the ball these last couple of games, especially against Texas Tech and Houston?
I just think they're playing at the effort is a lot higher than it was, like the care level. I've talked to one coach called me the other day and was like, they're just playing a lot harder than they were before. So I think that's the biggest difference. And there's maybe some technical things that they're doing with Hunter Dickinson but really it's just getting him to play a lot harder.
Speaking of playing hard, Houston does it every single night. It's why they're 18-1 in the league and why they've won the league for a second straight year. And they've got a chance maybe at a number one seed in the NCAA tournament and all that good stuff. I wanted to ask you relative to some of Kelvin Sampson's recent teams, like the Final Four team they had, or last year's team with Jamal Shed that maybe goes to the Final Four. Shed doesn't get hurt. How is this team comparable to some of the other teams that have made deep tournament runs for Kelvin Sampson? Do you think this one is his best? Does it compare favorably? What are your broad thoughts on this Houston team as they've wrapped up another Big 12 title?
They've performed as one of his best, but I would say that the 2023 team that had Jarris Walker, Marcus Sasser, Shed, that was his most talented and best team. That team just had injuries at the end. Like last year's team had, the big injury at the end with Jamal getting hurt and JoJo Tugler not being out there. So this one has had probably the best injury luck so far. So, maybe it'll have one of the better postseasons, but that 2023 team was probably his best. But I do think, you could argue this group is even better than the group that made the Final Four.
CJ Moore is our guest. He joins us every Thursday at this time during Big 12 basketball season for the Big 12 breakdown here on 580 Sports Talk. You can find him at CJ Moore Hoops across your favorite social media platforms, and he joins us here on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline. One more question about Houston. This is more a perception question, CJ. I feel like a lot of the discussion about the favorites to win the national title are Duke, deservedly, and Auburn, also deservedly. How do you think Houston at this stage of the year stacks up against the two of them? Do you think it should be a three-team conversation when we talk about the biggest favorites to win it all?
I love Houston. I love everything they're about. I love how they play. But I don't think they're quite on those teams' level. But I do think it would be difficult for those teams to beat Houston. Like, they're hard out.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm not sure about their ability to win 6 straight games in the NCAA tournament. I probably am not going to pick them to win the national title. I think the 3 teams that probably have the best shot are Auburn, Duke, and Florida. And Houston would be on like that next tier of teams for me. But they've played themselves into a 1 seed and deserve to be part of the conversation. And who gives a crap what we have to say, right? Like we'll see who actually wins the games. But if you're just asking me to like handicap the field, those three teams to me would have the best shot.
Out of curiosity, from a national perspective, we don't need to, break down every single roster here, but who do you think would be on a similar tier to Houston? Because, I mean, Florida's really, really good. I feel like they've kind of flown under the radar outside the SEC, too. What other teams do you think are kind of on a similar plane to Houston?
Alabama, Tennessee, Michigan State, St. John's, that grouping of teams. And they'd be at the top of that grouping, I think.
Sure.
Like, Alabama's awesome offensively, but not as good defensively. Houston's elite defensively, and honestly by numbers are elite offensively this year. I don't think their offense is quite as good as like a team like Alabama, but they can, that's probably the misnomer, is that Houston can't score. And when you look at they just play kind of slow, so they actually can score. Their efficiency numbers are pretty good, but I just don't think they're quite as talented as those three that I would put in like that top tier.
We talked a lot last week about BYU, and they just continue to win. It is now a 7-game winning streak for the Cougars, and that's now twice in their last 4 games that they have played the game of the night. One of the best games of the year. It was Arizona a couple games ago, and then Iowa State earlier this week. They're up big, BYU is. Iowa State fights all the way back at Hilton Coliseum. BYU pulls it out in the extra session. This BYU team, we know they're good. We know they can score. We know that they are well coached. What impressed you the most about BYU in that win over Iowa State? And maybe what impressed you the most about Iowa State in their ability to fight back and keep that one close?
Yeah, I'll be honest. I was tired that night, and I did go to bed early.
It was a late one.
I'm planning on watching. They were up like 20 when I went to bed. I was like, all right. So I did not catch the end of it. I plan to watch it all in its entirety tomorrow. But BYU's playing at a really, really high level. I know they struggled scoring the ball early in that game, but like they just know exactly what they want offensively. They've got guys that can stretch it and shoot all over the floor, and then always around like a really, really good rim rolling big. They run smart stuff. They've got 2 really good point guards. I think, like when you're talking point guard 1A and 1B, like who's your starter, who's your backup combination, they're right up there, because Igor Dimon's like Yegor Dimon is going to be probably a lottery pick. And then, his backup, Dallin Hall, he was one of the better point guards in the conference last year, and is, probably the best backup in the country. So, he's a starter level guy. So I just think they have a really good understanding of who they are, and they're playing to their strengths right now.
Last night, Kansas State beat Cincinnati in something of a rock fight game. That's kind of all those two teams do. And like big picture, okay, so what? They're 2 teams in the bottom half of the league, probably not going to make a huge impact come NCAA tournament time. Understand all of that. But I do have a question about Cincinnati. Why aren't they better? Like, I like Wes Miller, but it hasn't quite seemed to click. I like some of their talent. It hasn't really worked out now a couple years in a row. Why isn't this Cincinnati team better?
Yeah, it's kind of perplexing to me, too, because I had them in the preseason top 25. I was a buyer. I liked the roster. I thought they finished pretty strong last year. So I'm not sure I have a great answer. Like, they don't shoot the ball great. I mean, that's kind of been the issue the last 2 years, outside of my guy
Lukosius.
Lukosius, yeah. I always struggle with that one. Outside of him, like, nobody can really make many 3-pointers. So I think that's been a big issue for them. But they should have been better this year. Like, when you talk about most disappointing teams in the Big 12, they're probably at the top of that list for me.
CJ Moore from The Athletic is joining us here on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline for the Big 12 basketball breakdown. Joins us every Thursday throughout the college hoop season here on 580 Sports Talk. Again, you can read his work. Subscribe to The Athletic. CJ, it sounds like Utah is going to hire Alex Jensen as their next coach. He's a former Ute player. He was currently an assistant with the Dallas Mavericks, which is a tire fire right now. Might be leaving at a good time, but he's going to replace Craig Smith and be the head coach. Is this sort of the idea for Utah to follow the BYU model with Kevin Young a little bit in terms of access to talent access to some recruiting that Jensen might have moving forward?
I mean, I think they're just trying to be copycats, like you said. Like they're trying to go hire a really smart NBA coach and see if it works. But to have it work, you got to be willing to spin like BYU. So, you know, if they're willing to spin like BYU, then maybe it'll work. But if they're not, I don't think you can expect to win at the same level BYU's winning just because you went and hired a guy that has NBA experience. And if they do, you know, decide to spin at a high level, it's kind of a crappy deal because, you know, Craig Smith didn't really get a chance to see what he could do when they spin.
You should tell Utah, you should say that Utah is trying to copy BYU, and then you say that on social media and then mute all your notifications for that comment because Utah fans get feisty on social media. Regarding active coaches, we're about at the end of the season. We're going to see Big 12 awards before the Big 12 tournament starts next week. Who would be your coach of the year in the Big 12 this season?
I think you got to go with Sampson. To be able to repeat as league champ, to win the league by, you know, possibly 4 games. I'm not sure how you I could hear an argument for Kevin Young because of the way they've been able to finish, but I think it's Sampson.
It's going to be one of those years where it actually goes to the coach of the best team, because a lot of years, as KU fans will point out, that's not usually how it worked. I remember when KU went 17-1 in the league and Scott Drew was coach of the year.
Yeah, I mean, coach of the year is like such a kind of a silly exercise to begin with. Like, if we did away with coach of the year, you know, awards, I'd be fine with it because it's pretty subjective, and you can make arguments for so many different guys every year. Like Grant McCaslin could also be a good candidate, and I could make a case for him, but. I think player of the year, I'm good with that, but coach of the year, like,
to that point, CJ,
how do you define it?
Yeah, isn't it crazy that like a postseason award and an award based on like, oh, okay, everything that you did over the course of this season is pretty much determined who can win before we even play a single game, because it's all just like us guys in the media, like our expectations. Like there's only 3 or 4 guys who can ever really win it unless you go undefeated or something crazy.
Yeah, and if you build a really good roster and then you go and win with that roster, like, isn't that doing a good job coaching too? Like, recruiting's part of it.
Right.
So, I don't know. Yeah, a lot of times it will just go to the guy that, like, way outperforms expectations, which, you know, there's some merit to that, but I don't know. I like I said, coach of the year stuff, like, people will get really worked up about, oh, this guy should have won, this guy should have won. Who cares? Like, you could make arguments for so many different people every year.
Well, since you mentioned player of the year, CJ, we'll leave on this note. Who right now is your lean for the Big 12 Player of the Year award?
Man, it's a tough one. I think, you know, LJ Cryer's probably got to be up there. JT Toppin probably has to be up there. I would maybe lean Toppin right now, but I'd be okay with giving it to the best guy on the best team. But it's, you know, you can make arguments for different guys on Houston, like Jaywan Roberts. You can make an argument for him. JoJo Tugler is such an amazing defender. You can make an argument for him. So, like, if a Houston guy doesn't win it, it's because they've got so much. You know, there's so many different guys on that team that's the different best player every night. So maybe I'll lean JT Toppin, but you know, again, I'm not going to get mad if LJ Cryer wins it.
CJ Moore covers college basketball for The Athletic, and he joins us on Thursdays here on 580 Sports Talk for the Big 12 basketball breakdown. CJ, it's always a pleasure. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, guys.
That is CJ Moore. We'll take a break. When we come back, we've got to wrap up this 4 o'clock hour, set the table for one more hour today on 580 Sports Talk. Real quick, an either or over under for today. Over under 1.5 total wins for the Kansas teams at the Big 12 tournament next week.
Over.
Yeah, I'm taking the over.
Over. I think each team wins one.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think
This
KU wins 2.
I'd be thrilled if KU ended up winning 2.
I think he's going to have the 8, though. Have to play Houston again.
I mean, yeah. I win 1, and then that's all that's all I'm asking for. I think K-State is going to give us a classic. They come out and play really, really well in the first round. Like, wow, where did this come from? And then shoot like 24% from the floor in their second game.
I think
Dude, that game last night sucked.
Yeah, it was not.
That
fun.
was gross.
I don't know. Like I was saying at the top of the show, like I don't know if it's something about K-State in particular, but they have played in some games where neither team could make a 3-pointer. I thought Brendan Housen was going to break a backboard when he was shooting a 3 late in the game.
Every time K-State and Cincinnati play, it's ugly. It's disgusting.
It's so unpleasant. Jerome Tang had a funny quote at the end of the game. He was talking about defense, and they were like, "Nah, we're defending fine. We got to figure out a score, man." Coming up at the 5 o'clock hour, we'll talk Chiefs and more. Coming up, 580 Sports Talk. Let's get it. Third and final hour on a Thursday edition of 580 Sports Talk. So good to be with you. Thanks for hanging out with us. If you've been here, if you're just joining us, welcome in. Thanks for being a part of the show today. 580 Sports Talk on the Sports Voice of Kansas. 580 WIBW, FM 104.9, online at 580WIBW.com. In color on our YouTube stream. Channel name is 580 Sports Talk. Subscribe to the channel today. Check us out on YouTube. If you've never done it before, no day like today. You can also watch us on Facebook at WIBW News. Gang's all here for the final hour. Dan Lucero, Brendan Warzinski, Spencer Dupuis hanging out with you on this Thursday. We've got one more hour of sports talk to get to. Bill Barnwell thinks the Kansas City Chiefs, Bill Barnwell of ESPN, thinks the Kansas City Chiefs ought to make a phone call on DK Metcalf. Does it really make sense? Even Barnwell's conclusion isn't exactly ringing as far as an endorsement goes, but we'll talk about it because he's the best wide receiver on the market, and the Chiefs are in the market for a wide receiver. And we'll talk about what it might cost a team, particularly the Chiefs, to get the Seattle Seahawks wide receiver. Also, inspired by our conversation with CJ Moore that we just had, and we thank CJ Moore of The Athletic for joining us, we'll give our own Big 12 awards thoughts because we're down to one game left in the regular season in Big 12 men's basketball. Who's going to win Player of the Year? Who's going to win Coach of the Year? Which Kansas State player is going to be honored? We'll discuss that a little bit later on this hour. We've also got 580 Sports Talk headlines coming up, of course, here at 5, as we always do. You are invited and encouraged to make your voice heard on the show. Get at us on the text line, 785-272-9429. That is 785-272-9429. Also, if you are watching on YouTube today, jump on in that live chat. It's in the web browser or the mobile app, and you can chat with us and your fellow listeners as we go about the show today. A lot of headlines to get to, so let's get started with basketball action from earlier today. This one from WooSports.com. Number 4 Ichabod's topped by hot shooting Broncos in MIAA tournament loss. The top seed and regular season MIAA men's basketball champions are done in Kansas City after just 40 minutes of basketball, falling to Central Oklahoma 90-84 this afternoon. Brendan Dworzinski, the voice of the Ichabods, you were there, and hard to win when the other team shoots 60%.
Yeah, that's the number one thing here is Washburn just didn't get enough stops. And that was the problem in the other two games that Washburn lost this season is that other team, they got to get hot. Defense just wasn't quite there. The thing is, and I was talking to Coach Ballard after the game, MIAA Coach of the Year, over on Country 106.9, and he said, like, I don't even think our offense was all that great, and we scored 84 points. Like, some guys had off nights. Braden Shorter, who's second team all MIAA, one of the best three-point shooters in America, he goes 3 for 14 from deep. Like, that doesn't happen very often. Washburn went 6 for 31 from beyond the arc, scores 84 points, and loses by 2 scores. Like, that's it. This team is so good. It's just got to get more stops defensively. That was the difference maker in this game today.
Has there been a commonality in the games where they haven't, like, that's what gets them beat, right? Mm-hmm. I think it was Paul in the YouTube comments who had it right at the start of the show. Washburn's 0-3 when they give up 80+.
Yeah, which is pretty crazy.
So what's the commonality there defensively? What needs to be shored up going into the NCAA tournament?
One thing, and this is not, it's in Washburn's control because, you can tighten things up defensively. But in all 3 of those games, somebody for the other team went crazy and just scored a bunch. Northeastern State, it was a little bit different. There were a couple of guys who just couldn't miss. Arkansas Fort Smith, they had a player who made 8 3-pointers. Guy shoots 35% for the year, made 8 of them in a single game. And then today, there were 2 guys who scored 25+ for Central Oklahoma. And Coach Ballard even told me, like, look, they went to a bunch of ISO stuff. And you can live by that and you can die by that. And this time they certainly lived and they thrived by it because they just couldn't miss. They were getting downhill. And it wasn't all easy shots either. It's not like Washburn was leaving dudes wide open from 3. Central Oak only made 8 of them in the game. It's not like the KU Texas Tech game the other day, right, where Tech shot 42 of them. No, UCO shot 17 for the whole game. They just made a bunch of them. I don't want to completely hand wave it, and Coach would tell you the same thing. Like, hey, we got to lock down on some things defensively to make sure this doesn't happen again. But 60%, and like everyone was making crazy shots in this game. Israel Hart, who was the best scorer this year for UCO, he had 25 in this one. He makes some falling down, crazy circus layups throughout the game. It's tough. It sucks. It clearly was not the game Washburn was hoping for. But on the bright side, number one in the regional rankings. I don't think the MIAA tournament will have any sort of impact on seeding or hosting or anything for the NCAA tournament next week, which means that Washburn is going to host here in Topeka at Lee Arena, which is going to be awesome. Got a couple extra days now to rest up and work on some things too, which, like, talk about damning with faint praise, but it's true. And this team's great, man. I mean, they're 26-3. They're going to be fine. I'm pretty confident in that. I do want to make one thing clear. This is not the reason, what I'm about to say, why Washburn lost. Not even close. They allowed another team to shoot 60% from the floor and gave up 90 points. Like, you're not going to win many games in the MIAA like that. That being said, holy crap, the officiating was terrible.
And an MIAA game?
Awful.
No way.
Yeah, I just unthinkably bad, dude. I will not name names here. I have a DM in my Twitter account right now from somebody else who works for a school in the conference, totally unaffiliated with the game today, who essentially was like, yeah, dude, you guys got screwed by some of these calls. And again, make some stops. Things are different. But this was the worst whistle Washburn has gotten this year.
I heard you on the broadcast at one point, and you were like, I don't even know what's going on.
Oh, it's preposterous.
Yeah.
Brett Ballard gets called for a technical. And look, sometimes coaches are fired up. They get called for technicals.
Sometimes coaches want to get teed up.
And he was within all of his rights because the officials got a call wrong. Coach was furious. I get it. Central Oklahoma had a player who every single time he touched the ball, certainly scored, he had something to say to a player on the court, to Coach Ballard, to the Washburn fans, to a ref. He would not shut up. I said on the broadcast, he thought he was Kendrick dropping a diss track on Drake. Like, he was talking crap the entire game. Jacob Hanna of Washburn hits a three, settles down the UCO crowd, does the finger to the mouth. They tee him up instantly. It was a joke. It was genuinely a joke. And I'm not going to name names. Like, everybody has a bad day. It's not why Washburn lost, but good gravy. This is supposed to be a showcase for the conference. It was a clown show in the first half.
So that is what happened earlier today on the MIAA hardwood out at Municipal Auditorium. We'll also check the box on this headline as well from K-State Sports. K-State fends off UCF in Big 12 second-round win. K-State women heated up in the second half on their way to an 80-65 victory over the Knights at T-Mobile Center. And so the 19th ranked team in the country, or 20th ranked team in the AP poll, 19th in the coaches poll, will advance to tomorrow morning when they will take on West Virginia on the third day of the Big 12 women's basketball tournament. That game, like today's, will tip off at 11 a.m. And like today, we'll have the play-by-play coverage for it right here on 580 WIBW and FM 104.9 with the pregame at 10:30. And again, the tip-off, first game of the day at 11 a.m.
Serena Sundell really came alive in that second half, in that fourth quarter, particularly with her 21 points.
Needed her. She had 19 of those 21 in the second half. They needed her to get going. Nobody really got going early on, and then they put together a nice little run. UCF hung tough. I give them credit. They fought hard, but K-State too deep and too talented for that team. And now we'll see how they match up against a West Virginia team who we talked to Tim Fitzgerald about this yesterday. West Virginia beat K-State pretty good on the road,
70-13 or 70-57. It was a 13-point game,
but that was West Virginia at home, where they typically have always gotten a friendly basketball whistle. So we'll see if the pendulum swings back in K-State's direction tomorrow morning at the Big 12 tournament.
And they beat them last year 65-62 in the tournament.
That's right. They did. Let's go to some more headlines. Brendan, you've got one for us.
I got to mention Bob Huggins' Press Virginia teams on the broadcast today. You can probably guess during the Washburn broadcast, you can probably guess I was not complimenting someone when I was talking about them. Let's get to some notes from the NFL. There are a lot of them today. Let's start here. The Cincinnati Bengals have told Trey Hendrickson, their star defensive end, they are going to give him permission to seek a trade. Hendrickson then gave a quote to ESPN, said, "It's been an honor and privilege to represent Cincinnati over the last 4 years. I love the city and organization. I appreciate the privilege of now being allowed to explore my options." He led the NFL in sacks this year, 17.5 in each of the last two seasons. He's 30 years old. don't know how many years left he has in his prime. He's a really good player. He's like a more athletic version of George Karlaftis, I think. It's not a perfect comp, but a really high motor guy. Maybe not like the most refined technique, but just always gets after it. A little bit bigger than Karlaftis is, I believe. I like Hendrickson a lot. I liked him in New Orleans. Really liked him with Cincinnati. I have seen a lot of folks in the response to this, and I'm curious what you guys think, make the joke like, oh, Joe Burrow just threw his 17th touchdown pass of the day. The Bengals now trail 108-107. Like, they're tag T. Higgins. Who knows what his future is going to look like? They may still trade him. They're going to likely trade their best defensive player. Like, what are you possibly doing?
Sam Hubbard also retired.
Yes,
Yeah,
and Hubbard
because they were going to cut him.
So the counterpoint to that, which I think is fair, their defense sucked with those dudes.
Yeah, well, you don't get better without them. You don't get better without Sam Hubbard and Trey Hendrickson and Lou Anarumo calling the shots.
The thing,
like, there's no path forward for that group to get better.
The tough thing for Cincinnati is they really can't spend a single pick on offense this year. Like, every single one of their draft picks has to be defense because they've all busted. Every defensive pick they've made has been a bust in like 3 years. When they had all this money wrapped up in Burrow and Chase and Higgins and trying to find offensive linemen. They paid Orlando Brown big bucks. All their defensive draft picks busted. And that's partially on Anarumo too. Like, you got to develop someone at some point. Dax Hill has moved positions like 3 times and he's still bad. So yeah, it's not getting good. I don't know. Maybe they get a piece back and it helps, but
this felt inevitable.
Yes, I
once
agree.
The Bengals started saying, yeah, we're going to keep all of our big free agents. No, the hell you're not.
Yeah.
Like, that's not happening. And once they tagged Higgins, it was pretty obvious that Hendrickson was going to be the guy on the chopping block. He was my pick for Defensive Player of the Year this last year. I thought he should have won it.
He ruled. He was great.
He was the most impactful pass rusher in the NFL this past season. Now, is he likely to repeat a career year in his 30s moving forward?
He's also older for when he was drafted. Like, he went to school for a full 4 years.
Yeah, I mean, 30 years old, getting the big payday here. Because was he originally a trade to Cincinnati?
No, he was,
Or was he a free agent?
I think he was drafted.
No, he wasn't. He spent years in New Orleans too. Hendrickson?
Oh, well, yeah.
Yeah. He started in New Orleans.
Look for the
he was drafted in the 3rd round.
Every team that runs a 4-3 should at least make a call.
Yeah.
Chiefs included.
He was a free agent signing.
Yeah. I mean, I know the
okay.
Commanders and Falcons are in on him per the son of the former Starbucks CEO.
George Schultz. Yeah, the Bengals will not trade him to the Chiefs. That's not going to happen. But Brett Veach should at least call and say, hey, what will it take?
Yeah. How many guys are first-team All-Pros with 35 sacks the last 2 years coming off of coming onto the trade market?
Very, very, very few. Here's another one from the NFL that came out last night from NFL.com. Chargers release 5-time Pro Bowl pass rusher Joey Bosa after 9 seasons. Can you believe he's been in the league 9 years?
I can't, because he's barely played some of those seasons.
9 years, 107 games. That's not that many. And 72 sacks. That is a lot. Joey Bosa is no longer a member of the Chargers. This is the writing of Grant Gordon over at NFL.com. It will save the Chargers $25 million against the salary cap. He was due a roster bonus coming up next week of $12.3 million.
I feel like we had this conversation last year. Like, they did something with his contract.
Yes, they did some.
They restructured him and kicked the can 1 year.
Yeah, they mixed it around. I don't think he took a true pay cut, but I think he took money later. It was kind of a weird deal.
Which is why they're having to do this.
Yeah, so they kept Bosa and they kept Mack last year. Sounds like both are gone. They're not coming back. Understandable, and I get moving on from a guy who's off injured like this. Another team, though, like, they can't really afford to lose good players defensively. I mean, that's a huge cap hit. I understand why they're doing it. And you're right. This was telegraphed, but they're going to have to find some pass rush.
Let's play a game. How many full seasons do you think Joey Bosa has played? How many times in 9 seasons has he played in all of his team's games?
I'll take 2.
1?
2 is the correct answer.
Nice.
Spencer, you win the home game, the home edition.
Yeah.
You win Joey Bosa. You have to pay him now.
Yeah, the 2017 and 2019. He played 16 of 17 games in 2021. The last 3 seasons combined, he has played 28 of a possible 51 games.
Yeah.
And in that time frame has 14 sacks.
If the price was right, would you take a flyer? If you're the Chiefs specifically,
it's high risk, low reward, right?
Yeah.
Like you're getting a guy who can still impact a game, but how many games is he going to impact? How many games are he going to be dressed for? I don't know. I think that given the cost, this feels like a gamble somebody chasing the Chiefs ought to make.
I think he can probably get a couple years still. I mean, maybe he only ends up with a 1-year deal because everyone's scared of the injuries. But I think the longer term contract you give him, the more it needs to be incentive based. Even a 1-year deal, like I have no problem saying, yo, 1 year, $16 million, but you're guaranteed like 3. Like if you're gonna play 17 games, happily will pay you without question because I think he can still go. But I don't want to pay you if you're not going to be on the field. And again, with Matt going, I think Khalil Mack's probably a better bet, even though he's well older than Bosa. I think he's a better bet at this point if you wanted to sign him in free agency.
Oh, yeah. I think
He had 17 sacks.
Yeah, I'd much rather have Mack than Bosa.
And a better run defender.
I don't have to think twice about that one, for sure.
Can we get another sports headline in? Or an NFL headline in? Because this is all happening in real time in the last few.
Go for it.
The Jaguars they have traded Christian Kirk to the Texans for I believe a 7th round pick.
Yes, 7th rounder.
They've also cut tight end Evan Ingram and Josh Reynolds receiver to save more cap space.
Evan Ingram should be so much better than he is. And part of that this year was that team had just quit. They just gave up on Doug Peterson. And Lawrence was hurt. I understand all of that. He should be better than he is. He just refuses to block. He's the new Jimmy Graham. He's a wide receiver who's just big. I am fascinated by Josh Reynolds, to be honest with you. I don't know that he's a great fit given what the Chiefs already have. I think Josh Reynolds is a good player, though. Like, he's a very solid wide receiver 3. He'll block. He's a willing blocker.
He couldn't get on the field, though, for a Denver team that needed weapons, and they let him go. And then Jacksonville, he got 5 targets in 4 games.
The Jaguars also released 2-time Pro Bowl return man Devin Duvernay.
I'm going to be honest with you. I did not realize he had ended up in Jacksonville. I thought he was still in Baltimore.
I did not realize he was a 2-time Pro Bowler.
Yeah. No, the Christian Kirk deal, I saw people making fun of it for Houston. I was sitting at courtside at Municipal today and was reading reaction, and people were saying, it's one more old receiver. That's going to do it. That's going to fix your problems. Yeah, everybody knows Houston needs pass protection help. Like, that's not a surprise, but also, like, they don't have anyone to throw to. Tank Dell, I think, is going to miss the entire season.
Yeah.
Stephon Diggs isn't coming back, and he was injured last year anyway. Nico Collins is awesome, but John Mechie has not turned into anything, and that's out of his control. He had cancer. It's hard to come back from that.
You've got a new OC.
I think this was a smart move for a 7th round pick to be like just a decent receiver. That's fine.
No.
I like that deal for Houston.
They did. They needed a little more depth outside of, because you don't know what Tank Dell's going to be coming off of. It's 3 serious injuries if you include getting shot.
Yes.
Like, we don't know what that's going to be. Like, he's been really good when he's been on the field, but after a second serious on-field injury in 2 years, what is that going to look like moving forward? And we saw outside Nico Collins, they had no pass catching depth last year.
So at the start of this past season, after the injury as a rookie and getting shot, he really struggled out of the gate. Then started to heat up at the end of the year and then got hurt in that game against the Chiefs. And if I remember correctly, that was a catastrophic injury. Like, it wasn't just, he tore his ACL. If I remember correctly, there was a lot of ancillary damage. I think that was a smart move for Houston.
Yeah.
For a 7th, what is the likelihood a 7th round pick is as good as Christian Kirk? 0.1% chance. 1% maybe. Yeah, go get the sure thing.
On the bright side, James Gladstone, the new Jaguars GM, he just cut so many people from jobs that he's now eligible to work for Doge. So congratulations to him. One more headline from the National Football League.
I'm curious to hear what you think about this.
From The Athletic. Giants fans should be optimistic if Aaron Rodgers signs with New York because they're getting a motivated version of the 4-time MVP, says Diana Rossini.
I mean, is she more locked in than Adam Schefter with him? Maybe. Like,
she might be. I don't know.
We all know Adam Schefter was told to lose Aaron Rodgers' number.
You beat me to the joke. It was that obvious that we were both about to make the same joke. Aaron Rodgers loves that we are talking about Aaron Rodgers still, even though we all plainly saw last season and he can't play anymore. He's not good at football anymore. I don't care how motivated you are. I can be motivated, but if I'm bad at football, I'm not going to help a football team. And Aaron Rodgers, this version, old, crippled, banged up, not even all that interested, it seems like, in football any longer. Aaron Rodgers isn't good at football. He's not helping the Giants. He's not helping anybody. He's in the news, though, and that is Aaron Rodgers' favorite thing, is being talked about. He needs it like he needs air to breathe, and here we are in Topeka, Kansas, giving him oxygen.
See, I help himself to more ayahuasca.
I do disagree with one point. Pittsburgh wins 12 games with him at quarterback this year. This past season. Because I don't know what they'll look like this year.
Well, they won 10 with Russell Wilson.
No, and I'm saying, like, I think with a team with a line that's good, he can still make a positive impact. Because he can't move.
No, he can't move.
He cannot move in the pocket. So you have to have a team that can actually protect. Could the Jets protect? No. Can the Giants? Can the New York Giants, who haven't had a good offensive line since 2011, protect? No. Like, it doesn't.
He's less accurate than he's ever been. He's throwing more interceptions than he ever did before. He can't play, and he's 42. He's not going to find the fountain of youth playing for a miserable organization. I don't think he's going to find it anywhere.
This is a really stupid take by Dan Rossini. Like, nothing personal, but this is very stupid. Like, this is like your local newscasters trying to talk about the basketball game that happened that night, not necessarily hearing, like, you know, your anchors who don't cover sports being like, wow, they clearly just wanted it more, huh, Jim? No, wrong. They were better. They run all sorts of different things that are better, the better coach, they have better players. Like, don't do that. He's motivated. So what?
I'll bet he is. And he sucked last year.
I don't know that he is.
Yeah.
Like, you know,
how motivated was he?
Maybe it's because he wants to, like, start a podcast on the Joe Rogan Network. Maybe it's because he just
wants another Netflix documentary.
Maybe he wants to run for president.
Like, he's 41, going to turn 42 already, whatever it is. Like, he's played football for a long time at a really high level, and that's a lot of wear and tear, and that's a lot of training camp, and that's a lot of disappointment as of late. Like, I don't know that he is motivated.
Let me play devil's advocate. Devil's advocate here for 1 second. We know he's had a great career.
Yes.
But if you're going to remember somebody by how their career ended, that would be Aaron Rodgers. Like, if you go back and look back, you're like, yeah, he went to the Jets and then he proceeded to tear his Achilles, tried to come back and failed at coming back, and then they sucked the next season. So maybe he wants to
here's the thing.
Have a decent season and ride out on that. Yeah.
I understand your point. That being said, there have been a lot of quarterbacks, because it's true for most of the all-time greats. When it goes in a hurry.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
John Elway wasn't particularly good, but he had Terrell Davis, and they won 2 Super Bowls in his last few years. Peyton Manning got carried by his defense to the Super Bowl win in Super Bowl 50. But, like,
shout out Von Miller.
Tom Brady went out on, like, not his best football. Think of some guys
throwing 700 times a year.
Think of, like, Johnny Unitas in a San Diego Chargers uniform, limping his way through his last season. But you know what? That doesn't ding Johnny Unitas historically, because he left the football field with something that Aaron Rodgers forfeited a long time ago: his dignity, his human dignity, and his humanity. Aaron Rodgers forfeited that when he started talking about cancel culture caskets and going on Pat McAfee every week. The reason that Aaron Rodgers' perception has changed is not because he's bad at football now. We understand that that's what happens to football players and all athletes. You get bad, and then you can't play anymore. Then they take the jersey away from you, and nobody offers you a new one, and that's just how it ends. But the perception of Aaron Rodgers being negative now, he has nobody to blame for that but the man in the mirror.
Spencer, to your point about, like, his legacy, I don't think that will change. He won 4 MVPs, won a Super Bowl, and the MVP of that game. Great. Like, truly a great, argument for top 5 quarterback ever. The difference, though, it's, I think, less about legacy and more so I don't want people to joke about me having a bad year. Because now you're at a point in the offseason, right, where if he just says, you know what, I'm hanging it up, what's everyone going to say? No one wants you. You're retiring because no one wants you. That is what I think that's the motivation. Just being told no one wants you. And to play devil's advocate myself, that probably sucks.
Oh, I'm sure it does.
But to your point, like, hey, man, at some point you brought it all on yourself.
But we all get told we can't play anymore. Everybody who ever starts playing a game, we are all told we can't play anymore. It happens when you're a high school athlete and nobody offers you a scholarship. It happens when you're a college athlete, nobody takes you in the draft or offers you a contract.
Mm-hmm.
And it happens even for some of the greatest of all time.
You're right, though. It does go quickly.
This from Ryan, though, in the YouTube comments made me laugh. Rodgers should go to Minnesota and complete the full Brett Favre.
I would love for Aaron Rodgers to go to Minnesota because I think right now Aaron Rodgers would not help the Vikings. and I am worried about my franchise, the Green Bay Packers. So, yes, if they would like Aaron Rodgers, go for it.
Who's DK Metcalf going to help next season? Could it be the Chiefs? We'll talk about it next on 580 Sports Talk. .535 here on 580 Sports Talk. Rounding down this edition of the program today. No games tonight, but the Jerome Tang Show coming up 7 o'clock this evening here on the Sports Voice of Kansas.
If we're going to get to the Chiefs here in a moment, if you're really missing Chiefs football, I'd recommend, if you've got social media, if you're still on what was formerly the Bird app, the NFL Network account Kurt just shared a clip Apparently, Bobby Bones, the country music radio national host, has an NFL podcast with Matt Castle.
I know he's a big football guy, big sports guy. He used to do
24 whistles or
I
something.
think he used to do national sports talk on the weekends on Fox Sports Radio.
Did he really?
Yeah.
Oh, good for Mr. Bones. So he does this podcast with Matt Castle, and Matt Castle shared a story
That's
about
random.
Todd Haley hating him, and the year that they won the AFC West with him as the starting quarterback. He had really pissed off Haley, so Haley pulls him out of the game. Brody Croyle plays 3 series. Castle runs back on the field despite being told he's going to stay on the bench. Calls his own plays despite Haley not sending them into his helmet. Great clip. NFL Network again on X, the Everything app. It's all happening on X. You can go find it over there. It's pretty funny.
Speaking of the Chiefs, they are one of 10 teams that ESPN's Bill Barnwell mentioned in his article today about best team fits for a DK Metcalf trade. We talked about on yesterday's show, the Seahawks wide receiver has requested to be traded. Metcalf is 27 years old. He has played 6 seasons in the NFL, has 3,000-yard seasons and 48 career touchdowns. He's also been very durable. He's missed just 3 games due to injury in his NFL career. The Seahawks have publicly, through, source mongers, scoopsmen, said they're looking for a 1st and a 3rd round draft pick in exchange for DK Metcalf, which tells me they're not serious right now about trading him, because that is not going to be the price. That is not going to be what they get in return for DK Metcalf. That is what you would get for a true number 1 wide receiver. And I've always felt, even though I am a DK Metcalf fan, that he is just shy of that number 1 tier of wide receivers.
Mm-hmm.
He's never been quite as good as your Devontae Adams, Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, like the guys in that tier.
Just side question: would you take DK or Mike Evans? Talking best of the best.
Probably.
Or would you put them on the same tier?
I would say Evans is probably, the 1,000-yard thing is a big deal.
Yeah.
And DK has missed that a couple of times.
I think that's about where because I actually agree with you. He is a number 1 receiver by title, and a lot of the teams we'll get to here,
it's like how
fit.
It's like how not every number 1 starter in a Major League Baseball team is an ace. Not every wide receiver 1 is a wide receiver 1.
Are you telling me Brad Keller was not an ace?
Correct.
Is that what you're telling me?
I am.
Yeah, I think that's the dividing. And I like Mike Evans a lot, and I like DK Metcalf a lot. I think that's kind of your hinge point is better than DK. Yes, I'm in agreement with you on that. Let's leave it at that.
Good deal. Also, DK Metcalf is reportedly interested in a contract extension that would pay him $30 million a year. Again,
me too.
I love it.
Yeah, that makes 4 of us. I don't think that DK is going to get $30 million a year. I certainly think that would restrict the number of teams that would be interested. It's not generally advisable to have 2 receivers that make that kind of money. So if you've already got a receiver making premium money, you're probably not going to want a second. And I don't think DK is going to get $30 million a year. Again, I like him. think he's really good. I don't think he's on that $30 million tier that Chase and Jefferson are. And right now, those are the $30 million men, right? When you're talking about wide receivers, A.J. Brown's at 25. A.J. Brown's better than DK Metcalf.
Yes.
So,
agreed.
Yeah, I don't think DK is getting $30 million a year. I don't think the Seahawks are getting a 1st and a 3rd. Honestly, I think the Seahawks could give DK $27 million a year and just be done with it. And I think that'd be fine. I think that's a win for both parties. I still, and this is me as a Seahawks fan talking, think that DK's best fit is Seattle. But there are 10 teams listed here by Bill Barnwell in this article: the Bills, the Broncos, the Packers, the Texans, the Chiefs, the Raiders, the Chargers, the Patriots, the Steelers, and the Commanders. And part of what Barnwell writes regarding the Chiefs: it seems clear the Chiefs have deliberately attempted to find low-cost options at receiver in the years after trading Tyreek Hill, preferring to spend their money on their offensive line and at tight end. Rashee Rice's presence would seem to render a Metcalf move unlikely. Rice and Worthy could be a dynamic 1-2 punch and would cost peanuts. Of course, Coach Andy Reid is entirely capable of changing course if he thinks it's worth a swing and knows the impact of adding a star receiver. So,
I don't know, Jim.
So, Metcalf would be a different kind of wide receiver than the Chiefs have had.
Very different.
Yeah.
Big, physical. Like we talked about DeAndre Hopkins being that kind of guy, but obviously later in his career than Metcalf, just now entering his prime, ideally for whoever acquires him or has him for the near future for his next few years. But I do think that if the Chiefs have full faith and confidence in Rashee Rice long term, like maybe not short term coming off the injury and maybe not short term with the possibility of a suspension still looming. But if they think Rashee Rice is a wide receiver one and we want to incubate that here for the next couple of years, then I do think that Rice and Worthy are 1 and 2, and then you fill out your wide receiver room with lower cost guys who fill out the depth chart.
Josh Reynolds.
Josh Reynolds, perhaps.
Or Hollywood Brown, or late stage Tyler Lockett, something like that. I've talked myself all the way into Tyler Lockett, by the way. I think that would be such a good move for the Chiefs, but we can get to that another day. Yeah, I don't see it, to be completely honest here with you. DK Metcalf would make any of these teams better. I think that is an important starting point here. And yes. I think the Chiefs offense would, just face value, be better with DK Metcalf on the roster. That being said, there are other things that go into play here. The money is going to be a factor. And he's just such a departure from what the Chiefs have had over the last almost decade at this point. I'm curious. I would love to add a player like that, but I don't think going for the blockbuster trade is the way they will find it. I think it's probably more likely the Chiefs would draft a guy who's outside of their typical mold and try to, add some of what they want into an already existing but young skill set, as opposed to, we know what DK Metcalf is at this point. It's a good player, and he's entering his physical prime, like you mentioned, at 27 years old. All good things, but you know what you get with DK Metcalf. You're going to get a fairly limited route tree, great athlete, awesome speed, big body, but, does that really fit the way the Chiefs run the offense? And maybe you'll come back at me and say, well, I want the Chiefs to run the offense differently. And if that's the case, totally fair. You're not going to get that because Andy Reid's your head coach, but fine, fair enough. I don't know if I love that fit, though, to be honest. I think I like his fit with pretty much every other team listed here. I don't really love it with the Broncos. I get it.
They've got the quarterback on the rookie deal, which
that
makes it a little easier to swallow if you're going to go above maybe a player's value and give a guy, if you give a guy like DK Metcalf $28 million a year.
And Barnwell adds at the end here, he says, going through the league, my two favorite landing spots for Metcalf are the Broncos and the Packers. Denver needs a more physical top receiver with a quarterback on a rookie deal. Totally fair. Green Bay has a wide receiver room with a lot of skills, but they're all spread out amongst a bunch of guys. Maybe you could use a guy who's more of a true go-to weapon. I think he makes a lot of sense in Green Bay. I think he makes sense in Buffalo. DK Metcalf and George Pickens on the same team in Pittsburgh. I actually don't really love that either. That's a lot of the I think DK is just a better version of George Pickens, to be honest with you.
I think there are a lot of similarities.
I'd also rather hang out with DK. He can be a hothead. I think George Pickens is insane, and there's a difference.
And maybe not a good guy.
No,
not like that. Insane. You can rock with.
No, that's more DK.
Not that's crazy George. He loses it sometimes.
Yeah,
no, it's nah, man, that's crazy George. You stay the hell away.
You stay away from him. Yeah. So Chargers too. I think they make a lot of sense.
We'll take a timeout. We'll come back and talk a little Big 12 hoops to round out the show today here on 580 Sports Talk. Opinions a little split on the thought of DK Metcalf to the Kansas City Chiefs. Ryan in the YouTube comment says, I give Seattle anything they want for Metcalf. Draft picks aren't going to help you win the Super Bowl now. The Jayhawker says Chiefs need to prioritize the offensive line first.
I kind of love Ryan's thought there. That's how I feel about Green Bay.
Yeah.
Like,
leap them picks.
go. You have a chance. You need a receiver, a go-to receiver. Screw the picks. Like, go win. I kind of love that.
Mark B says, I'm not buying DK as a fit for the Chiefs. Don't see the fit in the offense or under the cap. Yeah, like if he's really going to want $30 million, like, you know, the team, like the Seahawks could do that. And I think that they should. They should play chicken with him. I think that's what Barnwell's conclusion is, too. Just let him play out the last year and tag him twice.
Yeah. Mark on YouTube also asks, why not go get Tyler Lockett? I have talked myself fully into it. You can get him for cheaper. I know he's older. He's not the player he was 5 years ago, but I don't think you need – the Chiefs don't need, like, you know, to have a quote-unquote number one. They don't, because I think Rashee Rice is that guy. And Xavier Worthy really came on at the end of the year. They don't need that. I just think they need something steady. Tyler Lockett for $12 million or whatever is much more, I think, the speed the Chiefs should go with than trading capital and giving a huge contract to DK Metcalf.
Real quick, we talked to CJ Moore in hour number 2 today for our Big 12 basketball breakdown. If you missed that conversation, you can find our podcast on our website, 580wibw.com, or on Spotify by searching 580 Sports Talk. You can also, of course, watch the archived video broadcast or stream on our YouTube channel, 580 Sports Talk. We asked CJ Moore, player of the year, coach of the year in the Big 12, with one men's basketball game remaining for all teams this Saturday. I kind of agree with him on coach of the year. I think it's got to be Kelvin Sampson.
Yep.
I don't think there was anybody in the league who so dramatically overperformed their preseason expectations. Like, if West Virginia had finished top 5 in the league, maybe Darian DeVries, especially with all the injuries they dealt with, but the injuries became too much for them to deal with. I say you give it to Sampson this year. They're going to go 19-1 if they win their final game. I thought 14-6 would win the league this year. They could go 19-1 if they beat Baylor.
Yeah, I would go with Sampson as well.
What about player of the year?
Toppin's a good pick.
Yeah, that was CJ's lean with JT Toppin from Texas Tech. He's third in the conference in scoring, over 17 a game. He's also third in the conference in rebounding.
I might lean with him. I might lean with JT Toppin. Yeah, really good player.
Yeah.
Is he Obi's brother? I was having this conversation with someone the other day. I was just kind of assumed he was.
Jacob Toppin,
who is definitely related.
Who is definitely
Obi's younger brother.
I'll go to his Red Raider bio. It doesn't say on his Wikipedia.
Oh, maybe not then.
Yeah,
Obi Toppin.
No, unless he's got unless it's not worthy of note on his Texas Tech bio, they are not related.
According to multiple Google searches, it says JT and Obi are also brothers along with Jacob Toppin.
Yeah, I mean okay, wait, never mind. I'm on the wrong page. I don't know. I always just kind of assumed.
No, first result. Well, Google AI sucks, but Google AI says no, they're not related.
Obi Toppin's like a Jag NBA player. Like, he's fine. He's around.
Jacob Toppin was related. JT Toppin is not.
Obi, all-time college basketball guy.
That Dayton team was so good.
Yeah, man, they would have played so well in a loss to KU in the national championship game.
Anyway, my first team all conference, I would go Toppin, Javon Small, Curtis Jones, LJ Cryer. And then my fifth spot would be a toss-up between Hunter Dickinson and Caleb Love.
That I was going to ask, would you put Hunter on the list? I think you have to at least consider it.
I
don't think he will.
The league's top scorer on the list?
No, because Keyshawn Hall is empty buckets for a crappy team. He might get third team.
I think Hunter is going to fall to second team because I think they'll hold KU not being all that great against him, even though he's been really good.
I could see that happening, even though, he's been
been awesome.
Close to a double-double. What's he, 17?
Also, I hate Caleb Love.
17 and 10. He's basically,
I
know
stand
know how you
Love.
feel about Caleb Love. So, my player of the year would come from there. Like, I would be okay with either Toppin or Cryer. Like, I've been a big Cryer fan since his Baylor days. So,
me when I watch sad romantic movies. Big Cryer fan.
Me when I watch 2.5 Men reruns.
When Brian's song comes on.
No, that's on like every night now. I find myself watching 2.5 Men every night after like 10:30.
I have never watched a full episode of that show. Not for me.
I haven't
John
either.
Cryer,
It's
though.
hilarious.
Fun fact about John Cryer.
You go to DePaul?
Yeah, he sure did.
I knew where that was going.
He is the DePaul Tiger.
I knew where that was going.
And on that note, we're going to break. We got a final word next on 580 Sports Talk. Wrapping up today's show with a final word, Spencer Dupuis.
Yes, so I'll keep this quick, but it's about the Capitals and about Alex Ovechkin. National TV last night, TNT. Ovechkin now 10 away from becoming the best goal scorer in NHL history. And some schmuck named Darren Pang decided to say Ovechkin is a one-trick pony at scoring goals. He can go die in hell.
Whoa!
Wow, they're calling Ovechkin a one-timer merchant.
Holy smokes. I don't know how to follow that up. Listen to me call some Washburn women's basketball tomorrow. The women take on Nebraska Kearney at 6 o'clock. Goodness gracious, man.
Final word for me. Coleman Hawkins deserves a tip of the cap for putting it on the line for Kansas State and for his teammates. He did not have to be out there. He was not 100%. Jerome Tang told him, dude, you don't have to play. You can shut it down. Coleman Hawkins had no interest in doing that. He's not sitting on that NIL money. He's not just cashing checks. He's trying to get Kansas State over the finish line and get him to the NCAA tournament. And I respect that. And I still have a great deal of respect for the effort that Hawkins has brought even in a disappointing season. That'll do it for us today. We've got more 580 Sports Talk coming at you tomorrow from 3 until 6. Hope you will join us. Until then, for Spencer and Brendan, I'm Dan. This was 580 Sports Talk. Good night.